Hey, just a quick warning. Today we are talking about the Ahsoka trailer and about some of the characters in that trailer and their past appearances in Star Wars animated series. If you want to remain completely clear of all of that stuff before you see Ahsoka later this year on Disney+, this may not be the podcast for you. But if none of that bothers you, we hope you enjoy.
They said you were the best in the Parsec.
Welcome to Parsec Passion, a podcast dedicated to Star Wars shows on Disney+. One of the biggest and most heartwarming pieces of news that came out of Star Wars Celebration 2023 for me was the announcement of Kevin Kiner being named the composer for the live-action Star Wars series Ahsoka, which will be coming to Disney+ later this year, 2023. I'm Matt Murdock, or as some of you Parsec Passion fans might know me as, Double M, reporting for Double P Media's Parsec Passion podcast on this historic announcement to the Star Wars fandom. If you are a fan of any of the Star Wars animated series, such as Clone Wars, Rebels, The Bad Batch, then you probably already have at least heard of Kevin Kiner, who, before Ludwig, before Joe Shirley, was the composer who had been to the animated expansion of the Star Wars universe that John Williams had been for the live-action films. Through those animation series, he has developed character themes and action themes and added them to quotes and interpretations of some of Williams' classic Star Wars themes to develop a tapestry of musical narrative that has been consistent to the story and characters, as well as tell the musical story of Star Wars with precision of continuity and emotional context. But what do you think of this announcement that Kevin Kiner will be moving from animation Star Wars to live-action Star Wars? Do you have an opinion on it? Please let us know. You can find Double P Media on all social networks simply by searching for the word double, the letters PHQ. That includes Facebook, facebook.com/the word double, the letters PHQ. Or you can leave comments on our YouTube videos, which are found at the Double P Media YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@ the word double, the letter P, the word media. We want to hear more from you regarding Kevin Kiner, but did you also know of Kiner's additional and continuing accomplishments as a composer? An Emmy nominee for Star Wars Rebels, Kiner's impressive awards include being a 9-time winner from the BMI Awards for such shows as CSI Miami and Walker, Texas Ranger, among others, including Clone Wars. His repertoire includes themes for several of the characters that we know from Star Wars Rebels, and, by the looks of the trailer, we will see once again in the live-action Ahsoka series. Today, we will explore some of those themes, how and why they are used, and if we can expect to hear these themes when Ahsoka is released on Disney+. First, let's begin with someone that many in the Star Wars fandom, especially the animated Star Wars fandom, find as their favorite character, Ahsoka herself. When Ahsoka appears on screen, a lot of times this theme will appear, and you will often hear this particular phrase. One of the more interesting things about this melody, and actually many melodies that Kiner uses, is its adaptability to emotional context through the application of harmony, the supporting notes that are applied. This theme is very adaptable to harmonies that sound both major, which tends to make us feel happier or more hopeful, and harmonies that sound minor, which can make us feel sad or even scared. Additionally, the rhythm of these notes are mutable. Sometimes the notes can be held out longer, or sometimes played shorter, and those rhythms give us additional emotional context. Additionally, the melodic shape, the distance between each note, allows for it to be started from multiple places on the scale of a key, which can also add additional emotional context. Let's say you are new to any of the animated series. You still may have heard this theme being played before. It was used in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, specifically the episode Chapter 13, The Jedi. During its use, Ludwig also took advantage of the adaptability of the melody. He did use it in its most commonly used configuration, which centers around what we call the relative minor, and thus it is slightly sad or scary. in a couple of different instances, like this. But you might also note at the end of the episode, the same melody and melodic shape gets a different treatment harmonically as Ahsoka watches Din and Grogu take off in their ship. That sounds like this. In that instance, you can hear the chords that continually rise underneath and imply that it is trying to head towards a major key center rather than the minor. And this points to a feeling of hope. So, as you can see, Ludwig successfully used the adaptability of this melodic shape and applied scene-appropriate harmonic context. However, these are not the only choices available for harmonic emotional context, and throughout the use of this theme by Kiner, all the way from the beginning in the Clone Wars animated movie, through Rebels and Tales of the Jedi, he has employed a whole lot of different harmonic contexts for this lovely melody or fragments of a melody that we call a motif. For instance, just change a couple of the chords from the sadder or darker version already played here before, and suddenly you can turn this melody into something beautiful and light and very hopeful, such as this. By emphasizing the relative major as opposed to the relative minor, the feeling of the melody in that context is completely changed. And as I mentioned before, the starting point within a key can be changed with this melody because the intervals, that is the distance between each note of the melody, can also create even more feelings. If we start that melody on the 5th scale step of a major key, as opposed to the root where it is normally centered, we get something that feels very Yoda-like, because we got a mode of that key that we call Lydian. While it is never really important that you know or are even able to identify the context of the different modes of scales, I'm almost certain that this rendition gives a whole new feeling as opposed to the other versions that we've played so far. The reason that you get this different feeling, and why I liken this sound to Yoda's theme, is because there is a note in there that doesn't normally fit that scale. Yet, instead of sounding like it is an incorrect note, it kind of expands that major or lighter sound into something bigger, something almost wondrous. And that's what the Lydian mode of a scale does. And this is one of John Williams' biggest tricks in helping us to be amazed when Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the Dagobah swamp in Empire Strikes Back. Or what makes us stay a little longer than we normally would as we watch the credits of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Both of those compositions use the Lydian mode. And there are even more feelings you can get out of the harmony that goes under this wonderful melody. I've left links in the show notes to YouTube videos where multiple instances of the themes we're covering today are played in many harmonic contexts, one after the other. And I hope you will check these videos out in order to familiarize yourself with this theme especially, as I believe, since we already heard it used in the Mandoverse shows before, we will definitely hear a lot of. For Ahsoka's theme in particular, you will find the link in the show notes for the Edelweiss YouTube channel, which has many, many different versions of this theme with different kinds of harmonies implied underneath that will all give you different feelings. That being said, we're going to explore more themes that, so far, we've only heard primarily in the animated series, Star Wars Rebels, of course. These themes are for two characters from that series that we also saw come to life during the live-action Ahsoka trailer released at Star Wars Celebration 2023. Just like the Ahsoka theme at the Edelweiss YouTube channel, other channels have made various versions of these other character themes, and I will leave those in the show notes. The reason why I wish to do this is so that for those of you who aren't familiar with the animated series, but are a music fan, you'll already be prepared to hear these melodies potentially be played in the new Ahsoka series as penned by Kevin Kiner. As we explore these characters, let's remember that first, we talk a lot about the Mandalorian here on Parsec Passion, of course, and we have yet another Mandalorian character that appeared in both Star Wars Rebels and in this trailer. That character is Sabine Wren, and there are actually two things to remember about music related to Sabine. First, there is a motif, a little snippet of music that moves quickly and is positioned in a way to sound minor or darker, like this. But, as I said, a motif is just a fragment, and this motif is sometimes used for Sabine in action. But that same motif can also be continued on past that little short phrase to resolve in a place that you might not expect. It's parallel major key. And Kiner has done this before, and it sounds like this. Now, sometimes this full fragment or melody can be used as an introduction to the main part of Sabine's theme, which is this very sweeping melodic shape. It sounds like this. Let's examine that melodic shape for a second. I call this melodic shape, again, that means the distances between each note, I call it sweeping. Why do I do that? I do that because there are many big jumps in this melody. There's a big jump up and then an even bigger dip down just in the first three notes alone. There's then a resolution by just a step downward, and this shape implies both volatility and a little bit of sadness as a result. Now, we've seen Sabine go through changes in Star Wars Rebels, if you've seen that show, and this melodic shape was a great way to represent that. So you might think of the melodic shape as a representation of Sabine herself, and all of those things that have happened to Sabine, and her general approach towards things, philosophies, feelings, experiences, all the things that make Sabine who she is. That is what the theme does. And then we can place that theme, if you think of the melody as the character herself, we can place that music in all kinds of additional emotional context by employing different harmonies underneath that melody. For instance, this melody can actually sound quite happy, light, and even have a tinge of nobility to it when it is placed in the harmonic context of a major key. And yet, all we have to do is substitute that first major chord with its relative minor chord, and we get an emotional context that feels darker, more strained, sad, even longing. It's the way that the shape and the harmony work together that can create all of this different gamut of emotions for us. Also note that just like the Ahsoka theme, sometimes notes can be held out longer, or even made shorter, or sometimes a note is even omitted completely. This melody, once again, is very mutable, with differences in rhythm giving us yet additional character or emotional context for the story it's being applied to. Now, I have to admit, Sabine is one of my favorite characters from Star Wars Rebels. She's an artist who thinks in big strokes, which also kind of lends itself to that sweeping melody. Yet, Sabine is also a highly functional operative, and that lends itself to that quicker motive that we started with regarding music for her. I was very excited to see this character in the live-action trailer, and once again, please go check out those show notes and find the link to the many incarnations of her theme on one YouTube video from the Last Sith channel. As for the question as to whether we will hear this theme used in the Disney Plus series, I certainly hope so, because if anyone can find a place in a scene for Sabine that this music fits, it's definitely Kevin Kiner. I couldn't even begin to tell you how often or not it will appear, or whether it will be strongly emphasized as we heard in the Star Wars Rebels examples. I mean, after all, this is an Ahsoka show. It's not a Sabine show. But I do sincerely hope that we at least get an allusion to this theme from time to time. How am I doing so far? Are you still here? What did you think of these themes so far? What do you think of these characters? What did you think of the trailer for the Ahsoka series that came out at Star Wars Celebration? We want to hear from you regarding all of that, so reach out to Double P Media on all of the socials out there by finding and communicating with the word double, the letters PHQ. That's for Twitter, for Instagram, and Hive, and whatever else is out there, even Facebook, facebook.com/the word double, the letters PHQ. Or you can leave comments on the Double P Media YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/the word double, the letter P, the word media. Let's move on to our final character theme, a theme representing yet another fan favorite as far as both Star Wars Rebels and even Star Wars The Bad Batch goes. Hera Syndulla was the mothering glue for the Star Wars Rebel gang, as well as a fierce freedom fighter for the Rebel cause, even from childhood. And by the looks of the trailer, we're going to see that fierce fighter in this series. However, most of the themes that are dedicated to this character seem to favor more of the mothering nature of Hera, so this, among the three themes, is the one where I wonder most if we might actually hear, and if we do, what context it might be placed in. Before we get to that, though, there is another motive sometimes that might associate itself with her action side, so I'm wondering if we might hear more of it in the Ahsoka series than that mother-like theme. Hopefully Kiner will find some way to give us both, and again, I have a link in the show notes where you will be able to hear both pieces of music in different emotional harmonic contexts, this time from the Flash Music YouTube channel. So let's begin with the more action-oriented motif, the one that I think we're more likely to hear, if I have to guess, throughout the course of the Ahsoka series. It sounds like this. One thing that I note is that this implies a major harmony. The notes in this melody are giving it a soaring shape. It's reaching higher, and most of them are chord tones of the major key. Now, it's not that Hera doesn't have her moments of peril when she's fighting, or her dark moments, but I like to think of the fact that this is major as her mothering nature creeping in. That positive nature, and thus it sounds major. But, on its own, it doesn't really feel all that fierce, right? It doesn't feel like fighting. So in order to add the element of excitement that we usually get with fighting, we have to add rhythm to it. And Kiner will typically put some kind of pulsing or syncopated rhythm underneath that motif. Syncopated rhythm, by the way, means hitting beats that are not regularly felt, like when you're dancing or clapping along with a song. And by having those beats that are kind of off-kilter a little bit, we add excitement. For instance, Kiner might place a rhythm underneath that melody that we just heard that sounds like this. And what about Hera's mothering nature? Where does that come from? How is that related to this fighting theme to where we have to put rhythms underneath in order to make it seem more fierce? Well, it comes from her main theme, which is very sentimental and has a beautiful shape that climbs and then drops, and it's just like a gentle rolling sea. Powerful, but fairly even. Just like that action motif, it's easy to identify this theme as having the most parts of a major key. But Kiner also does something to the harmony that is implied within this melody. The harmony actually outlines a major home key or 1 chord, but it implies a minor 4 chord. Now don't worry about these numbers so much, but just know that the home, what musicians like to call the 1 chord, the 4 chord, which is 4 scale steps away from the 1 chord, and the 5 chord, which we sometimes call the dominant, are the 3 chords that really dictate what kind of emotional reaction to the harmony that we're going to have. So the melody is basically outlining a major 1 and a minor 4. The result is kind of a bittersweetness, a feeling that is evoked as both warmth and sentimentality, but not without its share of sadness as well. How does that work? Well, if you think about the way the chord would sound if it was completely major, and thus incredibly happy and hopeful feeling, we would have to have a major 4 chord which would sound like this. But instead we have that minor 4 chord, which adds a different flavor to the harmony, like this. And that allows us to still resolve the major 1 chord and thus feel the warmth. But the 4 chord itself, being minor, adds that tinge of darkness, that bittersweetness, and the combination of lighter and darker literally gives us a full gamut of emotions, which is what creates that sentimentality. There's something else about this theme that I find really, really endearing. It definitely reminds me of one of John Williams' themes that we've heard for years, since the first Star Wars movie. There's a cut on the New Hope soundtrack by Williams, and it's called Princess Leia's theme. Now, that theme itself was barely used in the film, but I remember even at an early age when I got that soundtrack, and I saw the original Star Wars when I was 7. In 1977, so I was very easily impressionable. But it quickly became one of my favorite Star Wars compositions. And of course, I was delighted beyond belief to hear that theme used a little bit more in the sequel trilogy. That sentimentality generated by that theme and generated within me towards that character has grown almost to a meta level as I continue to mourn the loss of Carrie Fisher. Back when I was young and I listened to this theme, I glammed on to that sentimental aspect of melody and harmony the same way that I glam on to this theme by Hera, because there are a lot of similarities between the two. That's the Leia melody, which follows almost the exact same course as the Hera melody. The melody has the same opening shape. The harmony is the same. But here's the kicker. If you know anything about the character of Hera already, then you know that there are actual character similarities between Leia and Hera as well. Both chose to fight for the Empire despite being in a position of high station that could have actually benefited from Empire's rule on a personal level. Because of those kinds of similarities, I love that Kevin Kiner patterned this particular theme for Hera after what I consider to be one of John Williams' best composed pieces. But here's the thing. We unfortunately do not see anything in the trailer with Hera displaying that motherly or sentimental side. So will we hear that motherly theme for her in Ahsoka? It's perhaps the one theme that I have the most doubts about. But because I love it so much, I also hope probably the most that Kiner will come through for us and find a way to work this theme in. And with that, that's going to do it for this special edition podcast covering the music of the Mandoverse. I hope you enjoyed it all the way through and would love it if you would leave comments on the YouTube video, which you can find at youtube.com/@media, or let us know by getting in touch with Double P via any of the social media accounts. To find those, wherever you're looking, look for the word double, the letters PHQ. This has been Double M, Matt Murdock, and you can follow my personal Twitter account at Musical Concepts. Thank you so much for watching and or listening.